My name is Amara Collins. I'm a single mother to a 6-year-old girl named Nia. On the night I met him, my daughter was struggling to breathe, and I was seconds away from losing her. The hospital lights were blinding. My hands were shaking. I didn't belong in a place that expensive, that quiet, that powerful, but I didn't care. I would beg anyone, break any rule. That was when the hallway went silent. A man in a dark suit stopped in front of me. Doctors froze. Nurses straightened. No one spoke his name, but everyone moved when he did. I grabbed his sleeve. "I don't care who you are," I said. "If you can save my child, please." He looked at my daughter once, then at me, and with a single command he changed our lives forever. Before we continue, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. This will make me so happy. My daughter stopped breathing at 11:47 p.m. I know the exact time because the digital clock above the stove was blinking red when Nia's wheezing turned into silence. Not sleep silence. The kind that punches the air out of your chest and makes your knees give way. "Nia," I whispered, already shaking her. "Baby, breathe. Please." Her small body was hot, damp with sweat. Her chest rose once, then didn't. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Fear wrapped around my throat like a hand. I grabbed her inhaler from the counter. Empty. I shook it anyway, like desperation might summon medicine that wasn't there. I pressed it to her lips, praying for a miracle I had never believed in. Nothing. That was when I ran. The rain hit my face like needles as I burst out of the apartment building barefoot, my daughter limp in my arms. The night air smelled like wet concrete in panic. I didn't lock the door. Didn't grab my phone charger. Didn't even check the money in my purse. All I could think was, don't let her die. Not tonight. Not like this. The closest hospital had turned us away before. Too crowded. No beds. No specialists. But I had no choice. The emergency room door slid open with a mechanical sigh, and I rushed inside like a woman unhinged. "Please," I gasped, my voice breaking. "My child, she can't breathe." A nurse glanced up from her desk. One look, then back to her screen. "Fill out the intake form," she said calmly. I stared at her, stunned. "She's 6. She has asthma. She's not breathing." "We're understaffed tonight," the nurse replied. "You'll have to wait." Wait. The word cracked something inside me. I sank to my knees on the cold tile floor, pressing my ear to Nia's chest, begging for a sound. Around us, monitors beeped. Stretchers rolled by. People groaned, cried, lived. My child was fading. That was when the air shifted. I felt it before I saw it. The sudden stillness, like the room had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. Conversations stopped. Footsteps slowed. Even the nurse looked up. A man entered the emergency ward. He didn't rush. Didn't raise his voice. He wore a dark suit that screamed money and control, completely out of place among scrubs and bloodstains. Doctors straightened instantly. "Kang," someone started to say, then stopped. I didn't know his name. I didn't care. I stood and crossed the room in 3 steps. I grabbed his sleeve. "I know you don't know me," I said, tears spilling freely now, "but my daughter is dying. If you have any power here, please help her." The nurse gasped. Someone whispered sharply. But the man didn't pull away. He looked down at Nia. His eyes, dark, sharp, unreadable, softened just a fraction. "She's cyanotic," he said quietly. Then he turned to the room. "Why is this child not in ICU?" No one answered. "I asked," he repeated, his voice calm and deadly. "Why is this child not being treated?" Chaos erupted. Orders were shouted. A gurney appeared from nowhere. Oxygen masks. Hands reaching for my daughter. "She's coming with us," a doctor said urgently. I tried to follow, but someone blocked me. "Ma'am, I'm her mother," I screamed. The man in the suit glanced back. "She goes wherever the child goes," he said. And just like that, the world bent. Hours later, I sat alone in a silent corridor, my clothes soaked, my hands numb, staring at the floor. That was when I learned his name. Kang Joon-hyuk, owner of Seojin Medical Center. Billionaire. The man who had just saved my daughter's life. I thought that was the end of our story. I was wrong. It was only the beginning. I didn't see him again that night. After Nia was taken into ICU, the world returned to noise. Machines humming, shoes squeaking against tile, voices rising and falling, but the silence he left behind stayed with me. It clung to the walls, to my skin, to my thoughts. I sat in the waiting area with my hands folded so tightly my fingers went numb. Every few minutes I checked the ICU doors. Every few seconds I replayed his voice in my head. Why is this child not being treated? Not shouted. Not begged. Commanded. A nurse finally approached me sometime after midnight. She didn't meet my eyes at first. "Your daughter is stable," she said. "She's responding to treatment." My knees nearly buckled. I pressed my palm to my mouth, choking back a sob. "Can I see her?" "Soon," the nurse replied. Then, hesitating, she added, "You're very fortunate tonight." I nodded, unsure what she meant. I would learn soon enough. 2 doctors passed behind me, whispering too loudly to be discreet. "Do you know who that was?" one asked. "You grabbed him," the other hissed. I didn't think he even came to the hospital anymore. After what happened to his mother. Neither did I. I turned in my seat. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "Who was that man?" They froze. The older doctor cleared his throat. "That," he said carefully, "was Kang Joon-hyuk." The name meant nothing to me, but the way they said it did. "He owns Seojin Medical Center," the doctor continued, "and the research wing, and the pharmaceutical arm, and about 12 other hospitals across Asia." My stomach tightened. "The youngest healthcare billionaire in the country," the nurse added softly. "They say he built this place to prevent mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" I asked. No one answered. I was allowed into the ICU just before dawn. Nia lay small and fragile beneath crisp white sheets, oxygen mask covering half her face. Machines beeped steadily around her like guardians. Her chest rose and fell, slow, steady, beautiful. I brushed my fingers through her curls. "You scared me," I whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. "Mama." "I'm here, baby." She smiled faintly. "Where's the tall man?" My heart skipped. "What tall man?" "The one who told the doctors to hurry," she said sleepily. He looked sad. Sad. The word didn't match the man I'd seen. The one who commanded rooms without raising his voice, who bent authority with a glance. But children see what adults miss. I left the ICU an hour later and found him standing at the end of the corridor, staring through a glass wall into a recovery ward. He was alone. No entourage. No doctors. No assistants. Just a man in a suit, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight with something that looked a lot like grief. I hesitated. I shouldn't approach him again. I'd already crossed a line once. But gratitude has its own courage. "Mr. Kang," I said softly. He turned. Up close he looked tired. Not old, just worn in a way money couldn't erase. "Your daughter?" he asked. "She's stable," I replied. "Because of you." A pause. "You should have been helped sooner," he said flatly. "That won't happen again." Something in his tone made my skin prickle. "People are afraid of you," I said before I could stop myself. His gaze sharpened. "Are you?" I thought of Nia breathing, of doors opening, of power moving like a tide. "No," I said honestly. "I'm grateful." For a moment something flickered across his face, surprise maybe, or recognition. "My mother died in a hospital corridor," he said suddenly. "Waiting." The words landed heavy between us. "That fear you feel here," he continued, "it exists because I don't tolerate negligence." Silence fell again. Not imposed but shared. "I built this place so no one would ever have to beg the way you did," he said. "And yet you still had to." I swallowed. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He looked away first. "You should rest," he said. "Your daughter will need you." As he walked past me, I realized something chilling. The fear that followed Kang Joon-hyuk everywhere wasn't cruelty. It was consequence. And somehow, unknowingly, I had just stepped into the life of the man who ruled this hospital like a quiet storm. Nia was discharged 3 days later. 3 long days of antiseptic smells, sleepless nights on a stiff chair, and the soft rhythmic beeping of machines that reminded me how close I'd come to losing everything. She bounced back faster than I did. By the second day, she was sitting up in bed, coloring pictures of flowers and stick figure doctors. By the third, she was asking when she could go home and if she could have pancakes again. You scared everyone, I told her, smoothing her hair. She smiled. I scared you the most. She wasn't wrong. The discharge nurse handed me a thick envelope at the desk. This covers her stay, she said. I frowned. I haven't paid yet. You won't need to. My stomach tightened. Excuse me. It's been handled. I didn't have to ask by whom. I found him waiting near the hospital entrance, standing where sunlight spilled across the marble floor. He wasn't looking at his phone. Wasn't speaking to anyone. It was as if he'd been waiting for me. I can't accept this, I said the moment I reached him. The bill. The treatment. I'll find a way to pay. You already paid, Kang Joon-hyuk replied. With what? I asked. I don't have anything you want. His gaze lingered on me longer than necessary. Not assessing. Not dismissing. Remembering. You reminded me, he said quietly, why this hospital exists. The words unsettled me more than any demand could have. We walked outside together. The city moved around us, cars, voices, life, but it felt like the world had narrowed to two people and an unspoken question. People like you don't do things without a reason, I said carefully. A corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. You think I have an angle. I think power always does, I replied. He didn't deny it. You have a background in healthcare administration, he said instead. You understand systems. You understand patience. I understand survival, I said. Exactly. That was the first time curiosity sparked where fear had lived. That evening as I packed Nia's things, I noticed something strange. Her inhalers, new ones. Multiple. Medication labels with extended refills. Follow-up appointments scheduled months in advance. All under my name. All approved. I hadn't asked for any of it. On the way out, Nia tugged my sleeve. Mommy, she whispered loudly. Is Uncle coming? I froze. Uncle. The tall man, she said. He said I'm brave. I scanned the lobby, and there he was, watching us. He crouched in front of her without hesitation, suit and all. Are you breathing better? He asked. Nia nodded seriously. Mama cries when I don't. Something dark crossed his eyes. She won't cry tonight, he said. He looked up at me then. Not as a billionaire. Not as a hospital owner. But as a man who understood exactly what it meant to lose someone you loved. That night, back in our small apartment, I lay awake long after Nia fell asleep. Gratitude warred with unease. Why me? Why now? Why did Kang Joon-hyuk, who ruled hospitals like kingdoms, care about a struggling single mother? I had the strangest feeling that the life he saved wasn't just my daughter's. And whatever debt I now carried, it wasn't written in money. It was written in fate. The call came at 9:02 a.m. I know the time because I was standing over the sink, rinsing Nia's cereal bowl, rehearsing how I'd explain to my landlord that rent would be late again. My phone buzzed once on the counter. An unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. Miss Collins, a calm voice said when I answered. This is Seojin Medical Center. Mr. Kang would like to see you. My grip tightened. Is something wrong with my daughter? No, the woman replied. This concerns you. Seojin looked different in daylight. By day it was flawless, glass gleaming, floors polished to a mirror shine. The kind of place that pretended suffering didn't exist behind closed doors. I was escorted past security. Past offices with frosted doors and unreadable titles. No waiting room this time. Straight to the top floor. Kang Joon-hyuk stood behind a desk that probably cost more than my yearly rent. He didn't offer me a seat at first. You left the healthcare field, he said, skimming a file. 5 years ago. My daughter was diagnosed, I replied. No employer wanted a single mother who needed flexibility. His jaw tightened. They were short-sighted. He slid a document across the desk. I stared at it. Assistant Director of Patient Operations. I read slowly. My breath caught. There's a mistake. There isn't. I'm not qualified for this, I said. I don't have the connections. I don't speak Korean fluently. You understand hospital flow, patient advocacy, and system failure, he interrupted. And you speak the language patients cry in. Silence pressed down on me. And the salary? I asked carefully. He named a number. My knees nearly gave out. That's more than you've ever made, he finished. I know. I pushed the folder back. People will talk, I said. They already do. They always will. And I'll work under you, I added. Directly. Yes. There it was. The truth beneath the generosity. Power with proximity. I don't want favors, I said. I don't want pity. His gaze hardened. This is neither. Then why me? He stood, walked around the desk, and stopped just close enough for me to feel the gravity of him. Because you were willing to break rules to save your child, he said. And this place is suffocating under rules that no longer serve patients. I swallowed. You need someone who won't be afraid of you, I said. Exactly, he replied. I signed the contract that afternoon. And just like that, I crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. My first day was brutal. Eyes followed me everywhere. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. A woman in administration smiled too tightly and asked where I'd trained. A doctor muttered, "Figures." I pretended not to hear. But the worst part? Joon-hyuk barely acknowledged me in public. Cold. Professional. Distant. It was like the man who saved my daughter had been replaced by the CEO everyone feared. Late that night I found myself still in the office, reviewing patient delay reports. He stopped by my desk. You stayed. I always stay, I said. That's how I survive. He nodded once. Tomorrow, he said. You'll attend the executive briefing. I looked up sharply. Already. Consider it a test. Of what? He met my eyes. Of whether you belong here. As he walked away, my heart pounded. Because I knew one thing for certain. This job wasn't just an opportunity. It was a battlefield. And Kang Joon-hyuk had just placed me directly at the center of it. By the end of my first week at Seojin Medical Center, I understood something clearly. No one was neutral about me. They didn't need to say it out loud. It lived in the way conversations died when I entered a room. In the way smiles curved too late or not at all. In the careful distance people kept, as if standing too close to me might cost them something, or gain them something they didn't want. Assistant Director Collins, a senior administrator, said one morning, her eyes flicking briefly to my skin before settling on my badge. We weren't informed you'd be attending this meeting. I was invited, I replied evenly. By whom went unspoken. The rumors moved faster than hospital gurneys. They slid through elevators and staff lounges, curled around coffee cups in hushed laughter. She cried in front of him. She touched him. She must have slept with him. That's how women like her get ahead. I heard them when people thought I didn't understand Korean well enough. They were wrong. In meetings, I spoke only when necessary. When I did, the room shifted. That protocol delays emergency care by an average of 14 minutes, I said during one briefing. That's not policy, it's negligence. A surgeon scoffed. You're new here. And patients are dying here, I replied. The room went still. Across the table, Kang Joon-hyuk didn't look at me. But he didn't interrupt me either. That silence was louder than support. Not everyone stayed quiet. A woman cornered me in the restroom. Perfect hair, tailored suit, lips pressed into something sharp. You should be careful, she said lightly. Men like Mr. Kang don't mix business with charity. I'm not charity, I replied. Her smile thinned. That's what they all think. The warning came 3 days later. Not spoken. Delivered. I returned to my desk to find my access badge deactivated. No explanation. No email. Just a red light blinking where green should have been. A test. I stood there, heart pounding, until a junior IT staffer hurried over. Oh, sorry, he whispered. System error. It's fixed now. But his hands were shaking. That night, a folder appeared on my desk. No sender. No note. Inside were printouts, my old employment records. My resignation letter. Photos of Nia and me outside our apartment. My chest tightened. We know who you are. We know where you live. I didn't take the folder home. I took it to Joon-hyuk. He was standing by the window again when I entered his office, the city glowing beneath him like something he owned. I'm being warned, I said quietly, placing the folder on his desk. He looked at it once. Then his jaw hardened. Did anyone threaten you directly? No, I replied. They didn't need to. He closed the folder slowly. I told you this place has enemies, he said. I didn't say they would be subtle. You put me in this position, I said. You put a target on my back. He turned then. I put you where you could change things, he said. But power always resists disruption. I held his gaze. My daughter is not collateral damage. His expression darkened. She never will be, he said flatly. The next morning things changed. People greeted me. My access worked everywhere. A senior executive was suddenly transferred to another facility. No announcement. No explanation. Just absence. Fear settled deeper into the walls. And for the first time I realized, the hostility wasn't just because I was different. It was because I was protected. And protection in a place like Seojin Medical Center was the most dangerous thing of all. The hospital changed at night. The noise softened. The hallways emptied. Even the walls seemed to breathe easier once the executives and cameras went home. That was when the real work began, and when Kang Joon-hyuk became human. It was past midnight when I found him in the records archive. He'd rolled up the sleeves of his tailored shirt, jacket discarded over a chair. No assistants. No security. Just a man surrounded by old files and flickering fluorescent lights. You're still here, he said without looking up. So are you. A pause. Then quietly, I rarely sleep. We work side by side, reviewing patient delay reports and mortality audits dating back years. Cases quietly closed, mistakes buried beneath bureaucracy. You built an empire to fight ghosts, I said softly. He didn't deny it. My mother died in this hospital's predecessor, he said at last. 10 years ago. I stopped typing. She was admitted with chest pain, he continued, voice steady but tight. She waited. Forms were misplaced. Doctors were overbooked. By the time someone took her seriously, it was too late. My throat tightened. She called me, he said. From a hallway. She said she didn't want to bother anyone. Silence filled the room. I arrived to sign paperwork, he went on. Not to say goodbye. That was the first time I saw anger on him. Not explosive. Controlled. Cold enough to burn. I bought the hospital 6 months later, he said. Then the others. Then the labs. I rewrote protocols, fired directors, built systems that couldn't ignore patients. And people fear you, I said. Yes. Because you punish negligence. Because I don't forgive it. He finally looked at me then. You were kneeling on that floor, he said. Begging. I swallowed. She was the same age as my mother when she died, he continued. And your daughter looked at me the way I looked at every doctor that night. Waiting. I didn't realize I was crying until he reached across the table and slid a tissue toward me. His fingers brushed mine just briefly, but the contact felt heavy with meaning. You didn't have to tell me this, I said. I did, he replied. If you're going to stand where you're standing, you need to understand why this place exists. And why you don't let anyone close, I added. A muscle in his jaw tightened. People you love become leverage, he said. Or losses. That night Nia's name came up. How is she? He asked. Stubborn, I smiled faintly. She wants to come visit. Something like fear crossed his face. This hospital already took my mother, he said quietly. I don't want it to take anything else from me. The words hung between us. Unspoken. Dangerous. As we packed up, he stopped by the door. You should know, he said, not turning around. This boardroom doesn't scare me. What does? I asked. He hesitated. Becoming the man I hated, he said. And then he left. I stayed behind, heart heavy and racing. Because behind the billionaire, behind the fear, behind the empire, was a wounded man who had built walls high enough to stop grief. And I was standing dangerously close to the cracks. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic confession. No stolen kiss in an empty hallway. Just moments. Small. Dangerous. Impossible to ignore. Started with proximity. Late nights became routine. Shared spreadsheets, quiet disagreements, glances that lingered a second too long. We learned each other's silences. His meant restraint. Mine meant exhaustion. You should go home, he told me one night. eyes scanning the dark circles beneath mine. So should you, I replied. He didn't argue. Then came the rules. Unspoken at first but rigid. In public he was cold, formal, untouchable. In meetings he addressed me by title only. In hallways he never slowed his stride for me. But after midnight, "Sit," he'd say, pushing a cup of tea toward me. "You skipped dinner," he'd note without looking up. Once, when a board member cut me off mid-sentence, he didn't intervene. But later alone he said, "You were right. I'll handle it." And he did. The next day the policy changed. People noticed. Not affection but alignment. And alignment with Kang Joon-hyuk was its own kind of intimacy. The first time he touched me was an accident. We reached for the same file. Our fingers brushed. Heat flared sharp and startling. He pulled back instantly like he'd touched fire. "I shouldn't," he said quietly. "I didn't ask you to," I replied, though my heart was racing. His gaze met mine, dark, conflicted. "That's the problem." The warning came that night. "You're getting too close," a colleague whispered as we passed in the corridor. "Men like him don't choose women. They choose outcomes." I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. The pressure built. Board dinners I wasn't invited to, but was expected to prepare for. Decisions I influenced but couldn't publicly claim. Conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. One evening, after a brutal executive meeting, I found him alone in the conference room, hands braced against the table. "They want you contained," he said without looking at me. "I don't need containment," I snapped. "I need respect." He turned. "They will never respect a woman they can't control," he said. "Especially not one they think I favor." "And do you?" I asked. The silence that followed was answer enough. That was the night everything almost crossed a line. The city glowed beneath us. The tension was unbearable. Grief, desire, power, fear tangled tight between us. "I can't be a secret," I said softly. "I won't raise my daughter in the shadows." "I never asked you to," he replied. "But your world demands it," I said. "Your rules. Your silence." He stepped closer then stopped. "If I cross that line," he said, voice low, "I won't stop. And I can't afford weakness." I met his gaze. "Then don't confuse distance with control," I said. "Because I didn't agree to your rules." Something shattered behind his eyes. I left first. And for the first time since I met Kang Joon-hyuk, I wondered if saving my daughter had placed me in the path of a man who could break my heart and my future with equal precision. I found the first discrepancy at 2:14 a.m. It was buried deep inside a patient transfer report. Numbers that didn't add up. Timestamps altered just enough to escape casual notice. I leaned closer to the screen, my exhaustion evaporating. 3 patients. Same diagnosis. Same experimental treatment code. All transferred out within hours. Too fast. I pulled more files. Then more. My chest tightened as the pattern emerged. Patients flagged as non-responsive were being quietly moved off-site, into a private wing I hadn't been granted access to. Outcomes marked pending. Follow-ups missing entirely. No deaths recorded. But no recoveries either. People didn't just disappear from medical systems, unless someone made them. By dawn my hands were shaking. This wasn't negligence. This was design. I tried to bring it to compliance the next morning. The response was swift and chilling. "That wing doesn't fall under your jurisdiction," a senior executive said smoothly. "You're overstepping." "These are patients," I replied. "Someone is using them as data points." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Be careful, Ms. Collins. Curiosity has consequences." The warning came home with me that evening. Nia's school called. "She was listed for an early pickup," the receptionist said. "A man said he was sent by you." My blood ran cold. "I didn't send anyone." Silence. "She's safe," the woman added quickly. "We kept her inside. But you should know." I hung up and sank onto the floor. They weren't threatening my job anymore. They were threatening my child. That night I went straight to Joon-hyuk. I didn't knock. I slammed the folder onto his desk. "They're running illegal trials," I said. "Off the books. Using patients no one will miss." He went very still. "Which wing?" he asked. North Annex, I replied. The one even your name doesn't open easily. His jaw tightened. That annex predates my ownership, he said slowly. It was supposed to be shut down. It wasn't, I said. And now they know I'm looking. He closed the folder with a sharp snap. Did anyone contact your daughter? He asked. Yes. The air in the room changed. That quiet storm I'd seen before, controlled lethal, rose behind his eyes. You should leave, he said abruptly. Take Nia somewhere safe. I'm not running, I snapped. Not when patients are being used like this. This isn't a debate, he said. If they're willing to scare you, they're willing to destroy you. And you. I demanded. What are you willing to lose? He met my gaze. Everything. That was when I understood. This corruption wasn't just buried in Seojin Medical Center. It was woven into the board, into the investors, into people powerful enough to survive exposure. And they were already watching me. That night, as I tucked Nia into bed, she looked up at me with wide eyes. Mommy, she whispered. Are the bad doctors coming back? I swallowed hard. No, I said, forcing a smile. I won't let them. But even as I said it, fear wrapped tight around my heart. Because I knew the truth now. Saving lives had made me a threat. And in a hospital built on secrets, the most dangerous patient was the one who asked questions. The first attack wasn't loud. It didn't come with threats or violence. Came with paperwork. I arrived at Seojin to find my office sealed and my access revoked. This time officially. Administrative leave, HR said politely. Pending investigation. Investigation into what? I asked. They slid a document across the desk. Misconduct. Conflict of interest. Unauthorized data access. All carefully worded. All lethal. They weren't trying to silence me. They were trying to discredit me. The media picked it up by noon. CEO's favorite accused of impropriety. Single mother leveraged personal tragedy for promotion. They didn't print my name. They didn't have to. By evening my phone wouldn't stop ringing. And Joon-hyuk said nothing. That silence hurt more than the headlines. I wanted to believe he was planning, calculating, protecting me the only way he knew how. But doubt crept in. What if I was expendable? What if I was just another casualty of his war? The call came just after midnight. A blocked number. You have something that doesn't belong to you, a man's voice said calmly. Release it and your daughter stays safe. My blood ran cold. You won't touch her, I said, though fear shook my voice. We already have, he replied. You just don't know it yet. The line went dead. I didn't sleep. I packed a bag for Nia. I rehearsed escape routes. I memorized emergency numbers. Then at dawn there was a knock on my door. It was Joon-hyuk. Unshaven. Furious. Uncontrolled in a way I'd never seen. Why didn't you tell me they contacted you? He demanded. I did, I shot back. You told me to leave. And you didn't, he said. So now they think they can use you against me. Against you. I repeated bitterly. This is about lives, not egos. He stepped closer, voice dropping. This board will burn the hospital to protect itself, he said. And if you go public, they'll take you and your daughter with them. I felt my heart crack. So what do you want me to do? I asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Let me handle it, he said at last. I can dismantle them quietly. And how many patients die while you negotiate? I asked. Silence. That was the choice. Expose everything. And risk destroying the man I was falling for. Or stay silent. And live knowing people were being used and discarded. I didn't choose this life, I said. But I won't teach my daughter that fear decides what's right. His jaw tightened. If you do this, he said, you'll lose me. I met his eyes, tears burning. Then don't make me choose between love and survival, I whispered. But he already had. That night I sent the files. To regulators. To journalists. To oversight boards that couldn't be bought. I watched the email send bar fill slowly, painfully. When it was done I collapsed onto the floor. And for the first time since I met Kang Joon-hyuk, I didn't know if I had just saved the truth, or signed my own death warrant. The collapse didn't sound like an explosion. It sounded like doors closing. One by one. By sunrise, Seojin Medical Center was surrounded. Black vehicles lined the street. Government seals were slapped onto glass doors that had once reflected power and perfection. Investigators moved through the building with quiet efficiency, their presence heavy with consequence. Executives arrived late and left early escorted. The North Annex was locked down. Lights shut off. Machines unplugged. A place that had swallowed lives in silence was finally forced to speak. I watched everything unfold from my phone. Sitting on the edge of my bed, Nia curled beside me, breathing softly in her sleep. Every breath she took reminded me why I had done this. The board fought back. They released statements. They denied knowledge. They painted me as unstable, emotional, opportunistic, a single mother who didn't understand how power worked. They underestimated me. What they hadn't anticipated was him. When Kang Joon-hyuk stepped into the press room that afternoon, the room fell into the same silence I'd felt the night I met him. But this time it wasn't fear. It was disbelief. He stood alone. No board members, no legal shield. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward, hungry. The investigation confirmed systemic corruption within Seojin Medical Center, he said evenly. That corruption thrived under my leadership. The room erupted. I built this institution to prevent negligence, he continued. But power blinded me to the rot growing beneath it. My chest tightened. I will cooperate fully with authorities, he said. And I am resigning as CEO, effective immediately. A gasp rippled through the crowd. He didn't look away. Didn't flinch. For every patient harmed, he said, voice steady, this is my accountability. The feed cut shortly after. I sat there in stunned silence. He had chosen truth over empire. Just as I had. The days that followed were quiet in a way that felt unreal. Too quiet. My contract was terminated without ceremony. My name vanished from internal systems overnight. Invitations disappeared. Calls went unanswered. Friends I thought I'd made at Seojin crossed the street to avoid me. We moved apartments. Again. Different neighborhood. Different routines. Nia learned not to answer the door unless I was there. I learned to check mirrors, to memorize exits, to live alert. But the threats stopped. The fear faded slowly. And the guilt, the heavy gnawing guilt, lifted when reports confirmed it. Patients were rescued. Trials shut down. Lives saved. It mattered. Weeks passed before I saw him again. I didn't expect to. But fate, it seemed, wasn't finished with us. The clinic was small. Underfunded. Overcrowded. The kind of place Seojin would have absorbed or ignored. I recognized him instantly. No suit. No security. Just rolled up sleeves and tired eyes. He was kneeling beside an elderly woman, helping her sign a form, explaining medication dosages with patience I'd never seen in him before. This was a man stripped of power, and somehow more powerful than ever. You don't belong here, I said softly. He looked up, and for the first time since everything fell apart he smiled. Yes, he replied. I do. We sat outside on chipped concrete steps while Nia played nearby, her laughter light and fearless. I lost everything, he said. I shook my head. You let go of it. He studied me. I was raised to believe control was safety. And I was raised to believe silence was survival, I said. We shared a quiet understanding. I thought loving someone meant protecting them by distance, he said. But all I did was build walls. And I thought courage meant standing alone, I replied. But I learned strength multiplies when shared. He reached for my hand. No hesitation this time. No rules. I don't know what my future looks like, he said. But I know who I want in it, if you'll still have me. I looked at my daughter. At the world she would grow up in. At the man who had learned painfully how to choose right over easy. I won't live in fear, I said. But I won't live without truth either. His grip tightened. Then let's build something honest. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the city softened into gold, I realized something profound. I hadn't just challenged a system. I had changed a man who once believed power was the only language worth speaking. And in doing so, I had rewritten my own story. Not as a victim, not as a secret, but as a woman who refused to stay silent, a mother who chose courage, a woman who rewrote his world, and finally claimed her own. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. This will make me so happy.